So at times, I have to fuss with that now. So guys, who wants to do the camera?
To hold it?
Oh, no, you just have to. I already pressed the start button. So basically, you see where it's bouncing? If that stops bouncing, you let me know, because that means that we've gone silent. Actually, maybe I should plug in the mic. What do you think?
Are you able to screen record on
Could be done, but thing is, with this, we can actually record what I write on the board, and well, I guess I should put it like this for you guys. So who can reach? So when I actually get here on time, I'll put this where someone of you can reach it from your seat. I'll just have to ask one of you to stand up and move it, or I'll come back and move it, something. But yeah, if I use the computer and just did the webcam thing, if you think about it, I have to carry the computer around and like set it wherever I'm working. The other thing is I'm using this mic, which means that you can actually hear my voice clearly, more or less, in the video, as compared to if I use the onboard mic there. It's not as good. Okay, so my office, where is it? I've lost the ability to spell office. That's not a good sign. 4386 M, I believe. So that is on the 4th floor. Do you guys know where the math department is? Anybody? You've seen it? There's a kind of sign out. Okay, so on the 4th floor, the hallway, which is like furthest back, right, closest to like the student union part of the building, that part, right? There's a long hallway. The math department's kind of like right in the middle of it. Where my office is at the very end of it, all the way down in what's called the interdisciplinary suites, because the math department's out of offices, so they put me down there. And so I'm in there, and that's my office. My office hours are Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 12:50 to 2:10, and also Tuesday, Thursday from 11 to 2. You can also contact me by email by jcook4. Okay, that's my user ID here. So that allows you to get in touch with me. You can send me email any time of the day. I don't care. You send me email at 3 in the morning, fine. I'm probably not going to answer it unless I'm like working or something. And hopefully I'm not working at 3. Most days I'm not working at 3. Ideally, I should not be working at 3 in the morning. But I'm certainly not bothered if you send me an email any time of day. Like oh no, the student sent me an email at 2 in the morning. Do there exist people who are annoyed if you send them emails overnight?
If they have their notifications on.
Oh, why would they do that? Like, I don't know. But, oh yeah, so I am always forgetting to turn off the sound on my phone, so at some point it's going to ring. All right. My apologies in advance for that. So, for that reason, I'm not really like super upset if your phone rings in class, because it would be hypocritical on my part. Although I would ask, generally speaking, that you try to stay off your phones in class, because, you're here to learn, not to like check on Facebook. I'm kidding. Who your age is checking on Facebook, right? It's for old people, right? But I don't know. What is it? Instagram or
like for some group things, like for the
group thing?
scholars, they made like a Facebook group for that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe you're on like a group chat or something. That's more likely, I guess. But I don't know. Anyway, my point is, try to keep that to a minimum. Don't be like the student I had one semester who keep coming to my office hours and asking me to reteach the lecture to him, and I was like, I just covered this in class today. You were in class, but I noticed you're always having your phone out. I think you're texting too much in class. You're missing most of the lecture. And he's a smart guy. He should have got it the first time, right? And he told me, he's like, oh no, Dr. Cook, I was not texting. I was watching soccer on my phone. It's like, that is so much worse. I was like, you realize if you ever ask me for a letter of recommendation, that is going in the letter. He's like, no, you won't do that. I'm like, yes, I will. You know, he asked me for a letter of recommendation still. Now, like for the tutoring center here or something, but you know.
So is
But-
Jacob form through email?
Yeah, jcook4@liberty, .edu. So that's my school email. I do try to check it and answer fairly quickly. Any other questions about the class? Let me talk about grades, yeah? So, how does the grades break down? There is participation, 60 points. There is quizzes, 90 points. There are tests, 450 points. There is homework, 200 points. And there is a final, which, all right, you guys know how it works here? What is the, how does it work? What's the total number of points in all your classes?
1,000.
Yeah, 1,000 points, right? That's a university like mandate, rule, regulation, whatever you want to call it. So if I've done this right, that's what? 150, 600, 800. So how many points are left? 200. So the final exam is 200 points. Right? Now, this is on the usual Liberty grading scale. So like 900 and above is an A. 800 to 899.99 is a B. I'm just kidding. I'll round up like an 899.9. I mean, I usually round up like an 899 too, unless I don't like you. That's not true. I like all of you. But yeah. Although my wife teaches online, and I have seen her debating over like whether or not to like round up an 899 point something or other. I'm just like, ah. But in her defense, she does poke them and tell them, hey, go do your homework. Go do your homework. And then they don't do their homework, and then they get a worse grade. But anyway. All right, so the other thing they don't do is like quizzes and other things. Now here, let me break it down for you. The only thing here that's electronic, right? Well, there's really kind of two things. The one is the top hat, right? And the other is the final, wait a minute, no, not the final exam. No, homework. Homework is electronic through MyLabs, right? There's about 10 of these. I think there's actually 10 of them. When are the, yep.
I want to read about the MyLabs. So for MyLabs, is it just like scanning printed homework, or we've done it by hand, or do you want us to fill out like bubbles, like a quiz format?
It is, yeah, I don't require you to show work for the online homework. That said, it is really in your best interest to, now that's not the case for all sections of college algebra. I think Dr. Putney has arranged his course a slightly different way. He does collect work from the online homework on occasion. I am not quite that organized this term. So my homework, I'll let you do it online. You don't have to turn in work, but I would encourage you to keep an organized record of your work just for your purposes of studying and everything else, right? And who knows, if I think it's worthwhile, maybe mid-semester I might say, hey, bring in your work from my labs and I'll give you bonus points if it looks nice or something. I mean, that could happen. Some of you are pre-med, right? Is that right? Yeah, you guys study. I like you guys. See, I taught physics here. I mean, so I was here for 11 years, from 2008 to 2019. I took 3 years off. Like I said, I was working in Alabama the last 2 years. And anyway, the Lord brought us back here, and so I'm starting again. And when I worked before here, I taught a lot of, I teach physics and math. I have a master's in physics and PhD in math. And I taught a lot of engineers physics here, and the engineering community, I love them. They're nice. They're adorable in their way, but they do think procrastination is a virtue. Like they take pride in cramming for tests. Like if one person could make an A on a test from like regular sustained work over a period of weeks, that would be okay. And they'd be like, yeah, that guy's okay. But if there's another guy who does nothing for like 3 weeks, but just spends like the day before the test just doing everything, and then he manages to make like a B on the test, they'd be like, yeah, that guy's living the life, you know? So this is just the culture. In contrast, when I taught you pre-med types, sorry to be stereotypical, but you know, stereotypes tend to be useful because they're at least statistically true. So when I taught physics in the summer, I encountered this really weird behavior. Pre-med students, they study. Like, they came to class and they like asked questions. They did their homework before it was due. It was just weird. So I look forward to your questions, you pre-med people. I also think of you as people, not just pre-med majors too, so just so you know. But anyway, so there's homework. It's worth 200 points. There are like 10 assignments. I would love for like, I think in Canvas it might say like 40 points or something. I don't think those 40 points are really Canvas points. I have to investigate this once I get some time, but after the dust settles, I intend for all of the homework assignments in Canvas to be weighted equally. They should each really end up being worth 20 points in the final estimation of things. Now, if that doesn't happen exactly, it's probably not going to make much of a difference to you, but that's my goal. But it's hard for me to judge when I was setting up the course before the course is live. Like, I can't really see how Canvas and the MyLabs interface. And this is my first semester working with this software, so residentially. Okay, so enough about that. Participation is like, how do you earn participation points? Well, top hat, right? First of all, come class. Second of all, on occasion, we'll have like a quiz or something in here. I shouldn't say quiz. We'll have an in-class exercise, all right? So I'll do some kind of like, we'll have some kind of problem. You guys work it out. We'll take a poll on what the right answer is. See how the class agrees or disagrees on what the answer should be, right? And then we'll choose the right answer because math is based on consensus, right? No, it's not that way. Yeah, math is very much not postmodern, is it? You can't have your truth, I can't have my truth. We all have to agree on that actual truth of math. It's funny how that is. So the participation will be through Top Hat, helping me with the camera, just asking good questions in class, and being here, being present, all right? Does that make sense? I expect everyone in here to earn all 60 of those points. I have made the participation points assessed in Canvas 3 periods. Once during each quiz, while you're taking your quiz, I'll be like looking at Top Hat, seeing what you did, and unless you're like, you know, chronically absent and, you know, not doing work, more than likely you'll get 20 points from that participation period. Yeah.
One extra question here.
Sure.
For contacting, since you have multiple sections, would you like us to contact the GSA before contacting you? Or do we have a GSA for our course?
I wish we had GSAs.
Okay.
See, if we had GSAs, that would imply that there's a graduate math program here. Sadly, that is not the case. Even though the provost announced that GSAs would answer questions at an emporium about 10 years ago, it didn't mean we had a graduate math program. I mean, I wish, but I will have a grader, I hope. But the grader's like an undergraduate, and they're no one you want to talk to. You know, undergraduates are like, they're kind of sickly and, oh, I'm sorry. But no, actually, I haven't met my grader. I can't speak ill of them yet, but I'm told that they exist. Anyway, so, no, you just talk to me. It's fine. And, but this is a good question because it reminds me, when you send me an email, you got to remember, I'm teaching like 5 different classes right now. And unless you tell me which course and section you're from, it's hard for me to process sometimes. So the more details you give me in your question, the more likely I am able to answer it the first time you ask it, you know? And don't have to send you an email back, hey, what are you talking about? Who are you? You know? Okay, but you guys know that. That's good advice, actually, not for just this class, but for all your classes, right? Anytime you talk to a professor, tell them which class you're in and try to be detailed in your request. That will save you time. All right, quizzes. There are 3 quizzes. All right, when are they? Well, if this had printed out properly. If you use your imagination, you could count, let's see here, 1, 2, 3 weeks from now. That may be September 13th. There's a 3 there on my printout. Anyway, so I did attach this. I did attach the course planner as a PDF to the announcement I sent you guys before, right?
Yes, sir.
So you can see the actual date there. There are 3 of them. Now, do you notice how this works? There's a quiz before each test. So that my intention, my plan for the course is I give a quiz about a week before the test, all right? Hopefully my grader and we grade those quizzes, right? I typically post a solution for the quiz soon after I give it, all right? So you take the quiz, you walk away from it, I don't know how to do these things, right? But then you can go and you can look at the solution, right? And then hopefully soon after we get you the quiz back, you can look at the quiz and see what went wrong. Now, so what I'm describing here is that quiz 1, quiz 2, quiz 3, these are like whole class events, all right? Other classes you might have like a 10-minute quiz or a 5-minute quiz or something like that. My quiz essentially is a pre-test. So some of you will ask me when we get closer to test 1, what's the review for test 1? The honest answer to that is every day is a review for the next test, right? We're always preparing for that. If you want a more condensed review, you could look at the quiz. Like the quiz is essentially a pre-test. It gives you a sense of it. Each test that I write, I try to cover as best as I can all of the material in that part of the course, right? So like test 1 will cover all of the material up to test 1. Test 2 will cover all the material between test 2 and test 1 and test 2 and so forth, all right? And so the quizzes at times will get they might even get just a little bit ahead of lecture at various points. Not too much, but just a little bit. So the quizzes will be based on all of the homework that is due. And so sometimes the quiz even is testing things, like the quiz might be earlier in the week, the homework might be due, the homework is always due Saturday, except for the very end of the course where I decided not to make a homework due Saturday and Thanksgiving break, because I thought, why would I do that? So I made the homework due after break. But that aside, the homework is due Saturday. So what I'm trying to say is there might be a homework assignment with a few problems that you haven't done when you hit the quiz. So you might say, well, that's unfair. We haven't gone over that in class, and yet you're quizzing on it. This is a pretty small part of the quiz, and the reason that's there is to make sure that you have a heads up on that material before you hit it on the test, right? I want the quiz to resemble the test in some regard, all right? Pretty closely, content-wise. Perhaps not exactly stylistically, but there should be some kind of duplication in format as well. All right, so you're like, well, then I'm going to do bad on the quiz if you haven't given me the homework on it yet, or if I haven't finished the homework on it yet. Well, I also intend to make the quizzes have a little bit of like a bonus in them. My typical goal is for you to have like an 80% understanding on the quiz. When I give the quiz, you get like a 90 on the quiz, something like that. So there's a little bit of a buffer. There are 3 tests. Each one of them is worth 150 points. Yeah. And that's that. I grade the tests. The student doesn't grade the tests. So I'll have student graders help me grade quizzes, but I won't have them help me grade tests because I don't trust them that much. All right. I do post solutions for quizzes and tests, so you'll have those to look at. The other thing I should be mentioning is that for both the quizzes, both quizzes and tests are on paper in class. They're not through Canvas. I know if you look in Canvas, you'll see quiz 1, quiz 2, quiz 3, test 1, test 2, test 3. It's because I have to put all assignments in Canvas. That doesn't mean that they're actually literally in Canvas. It's just a rule we have. All right, so don't let appearances be deceiving to you. Those are actually in-class paper assignments, all right? The quizzes and the tests. The only thing that's like, I don't even have any just purely Canvas, like online Canvas quizzes. Those don't even exist in my course, all right? So in class, on paper, and then the next question you guys will ask is, so do you give partial credit then? The answer is yes on those. I do not give partial credit on the homework because it's like, well, I mean, the homework has repeated tries, right? And some of it's exceedingly silly because there's like true-false questions where you have multiple tries. If you don't get those right, then maybe you shouldn't be a doctor. I don't know, but or veterinarian or a biochemist or are there any engineers in here? Yeah. So I hope you guys read my email about prerequisites and like, is this the right class for your major? I don't want to say much more about that in class. I would just say, please read that announcement, think through it. I hate to say this, but like, don't trust your advisor entirely. Like, they're usually a lot right, but they don't think as hard about math as like math professors. And I have seen students take courses that they shouldn't have taken, and then, you know, like, you can eat a lot of hours up if you don't get started on the right track. And there are ways of, if you don't have, like I didn't have the SAT, I can't place, right? There are things the math department has put in place that you can take, like, for example, if you think you know your stuff and you're going to be totally bored with all the math I'm doing this semester, there's something called an ALEKS test that you can take, and if you do well on that, you can prove, you can like place into Math 128, which is pre-calculus, or even calculus just with that test, like even if you don't have an SAT score or things like that, right? Yeah.
Approximately how much graphing will we be doing in this class?
A fair amount of graphing. It's probably 20% graphing, maybe 30%, something like that. Now, sometimes there's not a relatively small part of it's actually just you drawing graphs. A lot of it is you looking at a graph and analyzing information on it and being asked questions about it, you know? Sort of like, here's a picture with 10 animals. Which one's a zebra? Which one's a horse? Which one's a liger? Which one's a turtle? Whatever, you know? But then I won't actually ask you to draw those. I do foolishly at times ask students to do some graphing by hand. And then I'm reminded why I try not to ask that question, because it's depressing. But it's not your fault. I mean, this is not penmanship, and like neatness of written work has not been emphasized in your schooling, right? Like there was once upon a time, if you had like poor penmanship or something, teacher would get a ruler out and like hit you on the knuckles or whatever. None of you went to a school like that, I think, right? No, probably not. Yeah.
I don't know if they even teach, like, when I was in third grade, like, they, like, gave me a booklet of how to do cursive and stuff, but now I don't even know if, like, children are even learning cursive anymore.
Nah.
They are removing it from school systems.
Let's see here. So, that's it. If you have any other questions about, like, syllabus and all that, just, you know, email me. So, let me get into the math. So, let's talk about factoring. Oh, you know what? I buried the lead. One of the things I need to tell you about all this is that I allow you a page of, you know, the quiz is closed notes, closed book, right? You're allowed a non-graphing calculator for the quiz, right? You can't use your phone for the math, right? Every so often I have a student with a accommodation because they have some kind of some people need to use their phones to like check their glucose levels or something like that. That obviously is fine, you know. But I have a few people like that. I am teaching, you know, a couple hundred people. So, close up on my face, very exciting. Let's see here.
Mine, scientific calculator isn't coming in until Friday. Is that okay? Like, if I'm using my phone for a calculator now?
Oh, you can use your phone in class for a calculator. That's fine. I'm just talking about. I'm just talking about. I mean, if you want to use your graph, if you have a graphing calculator that you want to. Okay, so. All right, there's two worlds. There's the world of quizzes and tests. The world of quizzes and tests is strictly regulated, right? But as far as like homework goes, you can use graphing calculator, sure. You know, I don't mind if you use other things. I mean, you might get a tutor, right? I'll have a tutoring announcement sometime soon. I'm waiting for them to sort out some issues with scheduling and when things are being placed. Once that is solidified, I will send the tutoring announcement, okay? But there's like 3 different places on campus where we have free tutoring. There's like Cassis Tutoring, there's the Math Help Center, and then there's, I don't remember, they've named them very similarly. I can't remember. It's something new. It started since I left. But anyway, there's 3 different places you can get free tutoring for this course. But you know, really, the best thing you can do is try to work the homework by yourself. At least you should always try to work it yourself before you try to get help from a tutor, I would say, at least a little bit. Now, if you've got one problem that you're spending 10 hours on, don't do that, right? But do spend 10 minutes on it, right? See what's going on. There's like, the homework in my labs has a lot of help. It has like, there's like help me solve it. You can view a similar example. It'll point you, sometimes it'll point you to a video that's built into the text, right? I don't require you to watch any of those. I'm hoping that my lecture is sufficient, right? So you don't have to watch those videos if you don't want to. But anyway, so the quiz is the test. Scientific non-graphing calculator is all you need. But I also allow you a page of notes front and back. Okay, so that means as you're studying, I would encourage you to start creating this page of notes. So when I say page, it's important, I mean this size page, right? Not like, you know, from an artist tablet or something, right? One of these guys, front and back, it's fine. Now you can put whatever you want on it. I mean, you can put a picture of your beloved, your favorite psalm, proverb. If you're a fan of Elizabethan poetry, go for it, I don't care. Or you could put examples of college algebra and formulas that we use, that'd also be fine. Yeah?
I'm sorry, did you say the quizzes and tests or just tests for the one page?
Quizzes and tests. And so what I would do if I were you is I would be working on, so think of this as like a summary. Think of this page as a summary of the course up to the quiz, right? Take it to the quiz, that way you know, hey, I've got all the essential facts and figures right there, right? And as you construct this page, if you're doing it right, because I was allowed a page of notes in some of my courses as an undergraduate, and what I found was that I made this page, I wrote in size 6 font, right? And I had like everything you could possibly imagine on this page. And then I get to the test and I wouldn't even look at it, right? Because the process of making the page actually taught me the material. So having the page does not do the problems for you, right? There's a very big difference between having the formula and knowing how to apply it, right? I'm really testing more on how to apply it. So that's why I don't think it's really such a disservice. Now, if I was teaching some class that was mostly like trivia and like recalling facts, like I had a course in industrial and organizational psychology. I did not seek this class out. The fact that ergonomics was full put me in this class. It was offered once a week for 3 hours. If not for the existence of a coffee shop across and a break in the middle where I could get a large coffee, I would never have made it through that class. Now this man was the most one of the top 10 gifted lecturers I have ever had. He was incredible. But he was talking about industrial and organizational psychology. That was the most boring material. But I knew if I missed one sentence that man wrote down, that would be on the test. And so you just wrote like mad the whole time. We didn't have videos. People didn't record lectures or anything like that. And so that's not the nature of math, right? Math is not like that. It's not like, oh, you didn't hear that sentence that math professor said that one day, right? What you need to work on is being able to do the problems like the homework, right? It's more of a skill than a set of trivia, right? So for that reason, I don't think the formula sheet's a bad thing in here. Now, I wouldn't assume that you get a formula sheet in courses after this, all right? Okay, factoring. So there are a couple of formulas that I think would be good for that formula sheet I was just talking about. Oh, I should mention, I'll get to the end of the story eventually. So yes, you get a formula sheet for the quiz, the test. On the final exam, I let you bring 3 pages. My intention for that is you can just take the 3 pages you've already created and bring them with you. That way you're ready for the comprehensive final exam. Does that seem good? I hope. So a squared minus b squared is a minus b times a plus b. A cubed minus b cubed. Now this one, so how many of you, it's been like 2 years since you did algebra? A fair number, right? Yeah, so the homework is due Saturday, so you'll get it. All right, it'll come back. It's like riding a bike. But let's see here. So this is a plus b, if I remember right. A squared, I think, minus ab minus b squared. Now we'll have to check me on this, yeah? So if I multiply this out, I get a cubed. I get my minus b cubed. Do the cross terms cancel out? I get plus ba squared from this, right? And I get a minus ba squared from that. So plus minus cancel. And then this times that gives me, this times that gives me minus ab squared. And this gives me, wait a minute. What do you guys think? Is this the right formula? I mean, is this formula true?
It looks familiar.
Yeah, I know. See, I know that this is the pattern. The question for me, right, is whether the minus goes here, right? Let's see here. I think the plus goes there. So this gives me ba squared. I just have to check it again. Minus, that one works. I think I'm just minus ba squared, minus ab squared rather, plus, what?
Isn't there like an acronym for formulas?
Yeah? Yeah.
I think it's a squared plus ab plus b squared. And then the first one is
Minus here?
minus.
All right, let's see if that works. So we've got minus ba squared, and we have plus ba squared from that. And I've got a b squared a and a minus. Yeah, there you go. Thank you. Very helpful. So my point to you is it would be good to have this on your formula sheet in case you remember it wrong, right? Have I made my point? Yeah. So this is something I don't have like hard memorized. Whenever I know that there's a formula like this, right? But when I write it down, I have to like sort through it, the pluses and the minuses, and work it out personally. There's also a sum of cubes formula. Now this one I believe is a plus b, a squared minus ab, plus b squared. I think that's how that goes. Let's check it. ba squared minus ba squared, and then this gives us a b squared a and a minus b squared a. Okay, that's good. So these are important patterns to know about for factoring, right? The other one is just the, that was outside the room, right?
The neighbor across the room.
Because I couldn't decide if it was like an interesting like notification sound or if it was just from outside the room. This room's a little dicey. Like I've taught in this room before, and like the international student folks have had like a band out in the big room. This is not a good place to take a test when they've got a band out there. And they don't really listen to you when you go out and tell them to be quiet either. So let's hope that doesn't happen. I've been told that it's been years since they've had a band out there, so like I think we'll be okay. Anyway, so here we go. This is what? This is called the distributive law. So this is really at the heart of everything in factoring. This is really what I was just using to check these laws up here. I was thinking about how do I like multiply a times all of this. I have to use the distributive property to sort through how the terms go. So that's just basic to everything we do. Let's look at some examples. All right, so example 1. Suppose we have x squared minus 64, right? So this, at first glance, doesn't look like one of these patterns, but in fact it is, right? Because 64 is what? It's 8 squared, right? So I look at this, I think a equals x, I think b equals 8. And so this is x minus 8 times x plus 8. Now, perhaps you don't think about that in terms of difference of squares formula. You're like, I just factor that. I don't think about the difference of squares formula. That's okay. if you do it that way, that's also fine, right? My point to you is if you think of the difference of squares formula, you don't actually have to process the factoring, right? You just apply the formula, done. Let me show you another. What if we had like 9z squared minus 100? All right, so this, I would look at this as 3z quantity squared minus 10 squared, right? So it's the difference of squares, and I can factor it as 3z minus 10 times 3z plus 10. All right. So let's look at another one. What if I had x squared minus 3x plus 2? How would I factor this? Is this a difference of squares formula? This is not a, no. Yeah, the thing in the middle and the multiplying sounds, those are good words. How about the 2? We need to think about numbers that multiply, the product of which give us 2, right? And the sum of which give us the minus 3. Yeah. So if you think about 2, you could have like 1 and 2, right? Or you could have like minus 1 and minus 2. Hey, did I hand out the signature list in here for attendance? Did it? I didn't. It must be. Well, did one of you have the name list? Did I accidentally? It might have gotten into the pile.
I have it on Canvas where it says number, go pull us a list.
Oh yeah, but I printed out the roster for you guys just to like sign your name as like a double check on the top hat today. Did nobody have the list of names? I feel like it must have been in that stack of papers we passed around.
Do you have the extra stack?
It'll be like 2 pages of names. No? All right, well. Huh. Well, I've got my 115 and my 115 roster up here. Maybe this is it. No, this is section 3. That's the wrong one. Well, I guarantee you I'll find it right after class. Did everybody who's here successfully log into Top Hat?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it's fine then, but all right. So getting back to this, what do you guys think? How do we factor this?
X minus 1, X minus 2.
X minus 1, X minus 2. Very good. Now how do we decide whether or not she's right? I mean, you'd be like, well, you said she's right, so that makes it right. Well, I mean, we should judge it on the basis of like,
MDOS.
what's that?
MDOS, parentheses, exponents, multiplication, where you're going through like basic.
Yeah, so what you're saying is if we multiply it back out, we should get back to here, right? Like,
Yes, sir.
so a FOIL, yeah, we could do that, the first outer inner last deal. And so x times x is x squared, and you get the minus x from this, and you get the minus 2x from that. And of course, minus 1 times minus 2 gives us the 2. What I'm really just saying is if you factored it right, when you multiply it out, you should get back where you started. That's ultimately the judge, right? Okay. Let's do another one. What if we had x cubed minus 125? Now this one, again, fits one of these patterns, right? It's like this one. Wait a minute, so like what is 125 is the, what cubed is 125?
5 times 5 times 5.
Yes.
It is 5 times 5 times 5. Suppose you didn't know that. How could you figure it out on your calculator? What could you do? you could just take the cube root of whatever number appeared there, right? If you take your calculator, find the cube root function on it, or raise it to the 1/3 power, you'll find you get 5. So if you don't have, like, you know, ironclad number sense, you could use the 1/3 power and you'll get 5 here, right? So okay, so that is 5 cubed. And now so what I do is I can apply this formula right here, right? I just go, okay, so that's x minus 5 times x squared. Let's see here, plus ab. My a is what? My a is x. My b is 5. So plus ab plus 5x plus 25, right? Because 5 squared is 25. Sorry, my factoring kind of crowded out my comment there to the side. On tests, I like it for you to either like box or underline answers so I can, you know, see what your answer was. Okay. So that's an example of the application of this formula right here, right? Okay, let's go on. How about x squared plus 4x plus 5? And then example 6, let's do x squared minus 4x minus 5. I'll get you started. See if you can factor those. Ooh, I think I see how to do the second one. Do you guys? If I do like minus 5 and plus 1, that'll work, right? But if I hit minus 4 and plus 1 when I multiplied them, I get minus 4. See, the product of this number and that number has to be whatever's here.
It should be.
But this gives me, so if I multiply this out, right? I'll do it over here. This is x times x plus 1 minus 5 times x plus 1, right? That's the distributive property. And then x times x is x squared. I get plus x. I get minus 5x. I get minus 5. So this is x squared minus 4x minus 5, which is, you know, that's what we want. So did anybody get example 5? Did you factor it?
I think it's going to be like x plus 1 and then
You said you're going to put a plus 1 here and a what? A plus 5 over here? What happens if we what what happens if we do that? That gives us x squared plus 6x plus 5, doesn't it?
Right, we're not getting the middle one.
Yeah.
it's x plus 5 times minus 1.
X plus 5, x minus 1.
Yeah, that.
Let's try that one.
So can we get a negative answer?
Is it already in its simplest form?
I think it is, because otherwise we get a negative.
Yeah, so it's not equal to either one of these, yeah?
Correct.
This is a trick question. This cannot be factored. But how did you know that? Like, just by trying it and running up against a brick wall? Like, how do you identify when it's already in its simplest form? What do,
With the pluses and subtractions on that way you can tell whether or not you factored it. So you would have your factors.
well, yeah, see, but even that is a little bit misleading. Let me show you why. So like example 7, if we had x squared minus 6, can this be factored? See, some of you might have been taught no. But it can be, and we do factor that in this course because we know about square roots. So like x squared minus 6 is x squared minus the square root of 6 squared. See, so in fact we can factor this. It just involves square roots. It's kind of ugly, but here it is. So how do you know for sure? I mean, yes, checking the integer, like integer factorizations, the whole number ways of factoring, you can rule out possible whole number factorizations of the given polynomial, right? But that doesn't rule out square root things. And there's like an infinite number of possible square rooty things you could use to factor. Yeah? How do you know when you can't do those? The good news is there's a theorem. There's a simple theorem. Let me tell you. So here's the theorem. Ax squared plus bx plus c is prime, which is also sometimes called irreducible by other folks, which is just another way of saying it's already in its lowest form. Okay? In terms of real numbers. If we use complex numbers, then we could factor it. We can always factor any if we use complex numbers, then we can break everything down. All right? But it's prime, irreducible, when b squared minus 4ac is less than 0. So I would put this on my formula sheet because this is a tool I can use to decide when it is that the polynomial is what's called prime. Right, when the quadratic is prime. Like what happens if we check b squared minus 4ac for example 5? So for example 5, what are a, b, and c? What are these called? These are called the coefficients, right? The coefficients of the polynomial. Remember we use these for the quadratic formula? Yeah, remember? So this says a is 1, b is 4, c is 5. And so b squared minus 4ac is actually equal to 16 minus 4 times 1 times 5. That's 16 minus 20. So you get minus 4, which is less than 0, right? So this is why example 5 had prime polynomial. Sorry, I'll try to write higher. I see you guys are too many heads in the way, yeah? A lot of people fishing in the back. You should have like a periscope, right? Just like up over people's heads or something. What happened, if you look at the ones that we could factor, what would this quantity b squared minus 4ac have been? If you look at like examples, 6 or 7 or 3 or 2 or 1, if you apply this b squared minus 4ac to any of those ones, you'd find out that this quantity was positive, all right? Do you remember what this quantity is called? This thing right here is called the discriminant, right? It's part of the quadratic formula, which we'll talk about in a later class, yeah? It's a discriminant. It discriminates what kind of polynomial you're looking at. It could either be negative, in which case it's a prime polynomial. It could be positive, in which case you can factor it into distinct linear factors. Or it could be 0. What's that look like? Let's look at one that's 0. What if we had, let's say, x squared plus 6x plus 9. So we factor that. How's that factor? To get 9, we do not what? Either 1 times 9 or 3 times 3 or pluses or minuses of that, right? That's the first thing we try. And so I think if you just try 3 and 3, it's going to work, right? Because we get the 9, we get 3 plus 3 is 6. Yay. So this is the repeated, or the like multiple, the double root case. If you think about the corresponding equation, it's a repeated root. It's that one. If you check the discriminant, you'll find out that b squared minus 4ac is 0. Right? What's a, b, and c here? So 6 squared minus 4 times 1 times 9, yeah? Also known as 36 minus 36. Lo and behold, 0. So if you want to, excuse me, the the nature of the quadratic can always be judged by just calculating the discriminant. You can tell ahead of time whether or not you're going to be able to factor it or not by just checking this quantity. Now, am I saying you should start every quadratic problem by just calculating the discriminant? Surely not. I mean, that's a pain. You should try to factor it using elementary methods like we did. But if you run up against some obstacle, if it seems like you can't factor it, you should take a second and check the discriminant. And if it's negative, then you know what you're up against, right? Now, in your homework, there are problems that are like, here's a polynomial, and it's got options. You can either check prime, if it's prime, or you can put the factorization in if it's got a factorization, right? So what would be the logical way to work those homework problems? I told you have multiple tries, right? So if you were lazy, I would check prime to start with, and if it counts it as correct, then it's prime, right? So you know not to try to factor it. Now, this is not a good approach for the quiz, though. So, I mean, if you want to get more out of the homework, try to factor it before you just punch prime, but I really shouldn't have told you that. Oh well. So we still have a little bit more factoring to do, which I'll cover Thursday. I'm sorry I didn't get as far as I was hopeful, but I'll do better next time. So thanks, guys.
Thank you.